Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Cherry, if you could do roll call for us.
Erica Connor.
Here.
Mary D. Moore.
Here.
Joel Frederick.
Here.
Andy Menke.
Here.
Art Schneider.
Here.
Craig Burtz.
Here.
Jeff Vogel.
Here.
Jill Warner. Here. Jerry Winchowski here.
Okay, this is an open meeting and has been noted as such. To start off, we do have a citizen's comment by Matt. I cannot read your last name.
Sockrider.
Sockrider, thank you. If you'd like to come on up to the table for us.
Matt, you look just like your dad, you know that? That's a compliment, that's a compliment. Yeah.
I used to take that as an insult, but with age, I started taking that as a compliment. And my name is Matt Sockrider. Some of you already know me. I'm a graduate of Mukwonago High School, 1998. My parents have a combined, I think, 70 years-ish of service to the district. Both retired teachers. They still live in the village. I am a resident of Palmyra. I've got a second and third grader at the local elementary school there. I've been very involved with their schooling since they started, since we started looking at a house actually, and moving back to the area. And I've obviously become much more engaged recently with everything that's been going on. So I've even more recently become engaged with and meeting with and speaking with every individual who's running for our current school board, just to kind of make sure that everybody, and they are, I know that everybody's trying to move things forward in a positive manner. The reason I'm here today speaking to you all is to thank you for the time and consideration and efforts and resources that you all put into the dissolution process, specifically Tom and Sean, for the preparation and attendance. A lot of late nights and a lot of work went into that outside of our district. We understand that. I know that everyone in our district is working hard to move us forward in a positive manner, so that we can survive, hopefully long term and in a financially reasonable and successful way. I also want to specifically thank Tom and Sean for kind of being open to some communication, opening the lines of communication, whether it's just being good neighbors, whether it's some resource sharing, something as small as sharing a plow service for the two elementary schools that are literally 4 miles away on the same road, whether it's something slightly more involved, like maybe each of our districts has the need for a 50% third grade teacher, for example, where there could be some resource sharing, or whether it's much more involved over time. No one wants to go through the dissolution process again. We all saw very clearly how there is no benefit to anyone for a district dissolving, whether that's for the students of that district or the surrounding districts or any of the taxpayers. It just doesn't make sense, and no one wants to go through that again. So I know that everyone in Palmyra and Eagle is going to be working hard to see that our district moves forward in a positive way, and everyone has the needs of our students, the education of our students in the forefront. I know that everyone here does as well. That's why you're all board members. That's why you're here. That's why you put in all the time and all the work. So I look forward to having some open communication, some collaboration. Again, whether that's something as small as just some resource sharing or just best practices, bouncing ideas off of people that you have that are, very good at their jobs and have tons of experience. There's a lot that Palmyra and Eagle has to offer Mukwonago as well, or whether it's more involved over time if things, for whatever reason, under the circumstances, don't work out. If there needs to be something like consolidation or territory transfer or whatever, I think it's vitally important to have open communication and collaboration and to all be moving forward positively and with the same goals in mind. So I just want to thank everybody for their time, for their energy, and for all the work that Celeste has done. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks, Matt.
Right, next we have our consent agenda. We have approval of board minutes of January 27th, 2020, as well as approval of voucher numbers 126490 to 126850 in the amount of $2 million and change, and receipts for January 2020 totaling at $17,000. Any questions or concerns? Hearing none, that is approved by consent. We will jump right into our presentations. First, we have Fair Skies and NOAA.
Good evening. We have Mark McGinnis here from Fair Skies and Tim Hallback here from the National Weather Service. And we've worked together with them for the last year and a half, going on 2 years, to make our school storm ready and finding the best places to shelter our students within the buildings. And then also working with training our staff and our coaches and looking at our after-school programs as to what we can do to better protect ourselves. So they've come tonight to present us with being storm ready.
So the process of becoming storm ready is a federal template of best practices for weather safety. Unfortunately, school districts are not really aware of the best practices. Typically, a school district only does a tornado drill twice a year. The problem with that is that the drill practices for an unrealistic situation. Tornado could happen during the school day of 8 to 3, but it's 3 times more likely the tornado is going to hit between 3 o'clock and 8 o'clock at night in our state and in our county right here. And currently, well, beforehand, the school district did not practice or rehearse the most likely scenario of severe weather. We have changed that. There are federal standards, as I mentioned. First is identifying the right shelters in each of the buildings of the school district. FEMA recommends there are 3 parts of that. You need to know capacity, how many people you can fit in versus how many people you have in each building or at an event. You also need access too, which is a big issue after hours, access to the buildings. Also, severe weather happens 7 days a week, so you need to have a plan on weekends. I know the school district rents out facilities, and the people who rent out facilities need to know about the plan, they need to know about where the shelters are, and they need to have access to the shelters as well on a Saturday or Sunday. You may have noticed around the school district, Andy and his department have put up weather shelter signs in each of the buildings, so even if you weren't there the one of the 2 days that you had the severe weather drill, if you're a guest, if you're a parent, you can see the sign, you know where to go if there is severe weather. On top of that, the school district has enhanced communications in regards to weather. You have multiple redundant ways to receive weather warnings and also disseminate the warnings to alert everybody on your grounds. And then finally, the staff training is the most important part, especially after hours when you have coaches who aren't even employees of the school district in charge of your kids or students. They need to know what to do, how to monitor severe weather, and of course the athletic director has to keep them on top of things as well. A lot of this is really offset by just having advanced planning, training, and then also being able to enact that plan on the days that you will have severe weather.
Hello, I'm Tim Hallbach. I'm the morning coordination meteorologist for the National Weather Service office in Milwaukee, Sullivan, just down the road, a little bit west of here. So our office, we're part of the federal government under the Department of Commerce and NOAA. And our office covers 20 counties in southern Wisconsin. There's offices like this throughout the nation. The Storm Ready program is part of the National Weather Service preparedness program, where we recognize entities, cities, counties, businesses, schools, school districts that go through the process to go above and beyond to be prepared for when severe weather happens. You want to do all this work on the days where it's clear, like today, when we're not getting snowstorms and all that. Because you don't want to be worrying about that on a day when all of a sudden it's late May, it's kind of towards the end of the school year, and all of a sudden there's a threat for severe weather, and you're scrambling around trying to figure out where you're going to stick 500 kids eating lunch at, even if something does happen a little bit earlier. You want to be thinking about that all ahead of time. So part of this, and for my job, is to work with the school districts and groups that are trying to be prepared, and we verify the work that Mark and Andy have done to make sure that the rooms that they pick are indeed safe and in a good location. So this little certificate doesn't prevent you from having storms that come through. It's not gonna act like a shield. But it is, sorry. But it does, it serves as a small offering for us to, say thank you for the work that you all have done, particularly Andy, to make sure that, your district is safe and prepared for when severe weather happens. It's a low probability type of thing that it could occur, but it has happened. I think we get examples like this at least 2 to 3 times per year where schools get hit directly by a tornado. Hartford is a school in southern Wisconsin that's been hit by a tornado during the summertime, but it does happen here in Waukesha County, southern Wisconsin. We've got a threat for that here, so it's good to be prepared for it. So on behalf of the National Weather Service, thank you for the work that you're all doing. Thank you, Andy. Really appreciate the time and effort you did to go into this. So congratulations.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Do you guys have any questions at all about the process, or?
You guys want a photo op I saw in here? Do you guys want a picture? Should I take a picture real quick? Why don't you guys stand up? I'll take a picture real quick. Sean, you want to jump in there? Sean? Maybe Tom? Come on.
Sure.
This can go into triad. Come on, there's good stuff here.
You better get up and go over there, so it's a good
No,
picture. No, he does not.
You guys say cheese? Excellent, thanks.
Is that good?
Yeah.
That's good?
We don't want to see trees flying around.
That's a great.
Thank you guys for coming. Okay, next we have our student rep report.
Good evening, guys. So tonight I do visit you alone, sadly, but Emily is here in spirit. So first we have MHS on the list, and on Wednesday, January 27th, the Global Certificate Program did host 15 students from Costa Rica, and the students worked with the Spanish Level 5 classes, which I'm in, and they were very wonderful people to interact with. They also shadowed MHS students from the Global Certificate Program for a class period and gave presentations after school in the library. Then moving on to Parkview Middle School. On January 13th, Sean McGrath, a previous MHS graduate, shared his love for all things German in a presentation for Mr. Ricksman's 7th and 8th grade students. He shared his experiences in Germany through the MHS school trip, and the students definitely learned a lot from his knowledge. Then, moving on to Big Bend Elementary School, they hosted a glow dance on February 7th, and they wanted to thank all of the parent volunteers and staff who made that night a great experience for everyone. Then with Clarendon Avenue Elementary School, they have their annual One Book, One School event that started on February 7th. So each family is given a copy of the book, The One and Only Ivan, to show kindness and to learn more about that. And community members, as many of you know, but school board members included, will be visiting them to read to them during their One Book, One School event. Then Eagleville has been very, very busy with their Spanish Club, Eagle Club, Save Lessons, snowshoeing, and other activities, as well as their STEM fair, which yielded over $1,900 to send to their partner school in Guatemala, which is amazing. And then at Prairie View Elementary School, they're also starting their One Book, One School event. So the whole district is reading this month, and with their book, The Wish Tree. And many community members will also be visiting Prairie View to read to those students. Then with Rolling Hills Elementary School, they wanted to highlight Mrs. Napiorella for organizing all of their thank yous for Bus Driver Appreciation Week, and that she was recognized by the McWanago Rotary Club as the February Teacher of the Month for all of her work with the Raptor Way Committee. So congratulations to her. And then finally, with Section Elementary, they have their project fair on February 26th, where over 130 students are registered to participate in the event, where they will share something new and learn from other students, such as science experiments, history, and animals. So the district was very busy this month. Thank you.
Shannon.
Thanks, Shannon.
All right, so next we have an update from Champ, our high school therapy dog.
Is it okay if I stand over here so I can click through the
Sure.
presentation? Otherwise, I'm not sure which one.
Everybody remembers Sue Bachhoven from MHS. She was here this summer. to introduce Champ, so they're back for an update.
An update, and I mostly pictorial because I thought a picture speaks 1,000 words of his work. This is going to be his yearbook picture. Kyle Barton making sure is going to be in the staff lists of photos. I know Sean shared this out. This was a really special highlight. We have been in the news a lot with Champ, and I have been at a DPI workshop for the SEL work we're doing at the high school, and we highlighted some of our work with Champ as well there, and I can't tell you, I want to make sure you hear this, that there are, I don't know, I must have gotten 50 to 75 emails from staff all over the country, literally, wanting to know how I got him here and how did I convince the board to let him come. So people are hearing about what work is happening at the high school at Champ, and there was a really nice, if you haven't seen this, I'm not going to take the time now because some of you may have seen it, right? Seen this. So it was such a nice little article that the students, or news story on Sunday morning, local CBS, that the students spoke about his purpose. He was in the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel after he was approved. School students, newspaper was writing about him. So his work, what does he do, right? He's a cute dog that lays around all the time. So the first picture is Darian Olson's class. I co-teach in that classroom. That particular day, he was pretty excited to get his ball under there. He settles himself down once things get going, so he's not a distraction. But the kids love to come and see him. So the picture on the far right is a picture after the class is done between passing periods. The next class that comes in after hers just eats him up and can't really wants him to be a part of their class. Students are coming in all the time, whether it's through Flex or just bopping in. Teachers send their students that might be upset. Doesn't have to be special education students. It can be anyone that comes in and just hangs out with them, gets a quick pet. I definitely have regulars that stop by daily. I try to go out in the hallway during passing time like staff are asked to do so that we're monitoring the halls. And then of course I take him out there and just get great reception from just wanting to pet him. We had him out before final exams, and I try my best to be down by the buses when my prep runs the first block so that I can greet kids as they get off the bus with him. Every Friday I try to be down at Joe to Go as well. Hey. He's a carpet cleaner too. His bags are full of, hey, he smells something good. Conference food from probably something. So he goes down to Joe to Go. So this is a great opportunity for kids, all students, to come and get a little love. And he just hangs out there when they're getting their morning coffee. It's a great integration tool, I think, for students. Hey,
I'll put it over there.
He's like, I'm almost there. So specifically the students that I work with in room 289, that's why I put the room, that's my classroom. I tried to ask some students for feedback, knowing that I'd be giving this presentation. Basically, you'll see some quotes in here. He makes them feel safe. I ask certain students that I trust and need a little extra responsibility to be handlers. That means that they are the ones responsible for taking him on his potty breaks. And the design, unbeknown to you, the courtyard serves a great purpose.
There we go.
It's enclosed, so the students, I can fully trust them to go, let them off leash, throw the ball, play with them out there where they don't have to worry about them, and it works out great. They feel privileged and honored to be able to take him out to go and do his business or just play with him and hang out. Students, as you can see, just interact with him very differently in the classroom, and he does do more than just sleep, but he looks darn cute in his kennel. Here's some more students that are interacting with him. I will tell you that I have a student currently that will speak about when I'm not there with Champ in the morning. He comes and wants to check in with how he's doing. So it is bringing kids into the building that have attendance and anxiety issues, so that's really exciting to see. The biggest thing that I hear students in the hallways say, so I get a couple reactions, the girls, as I walk, and I shouldn't be gender specific, but most of the time, everybody's like, oh, he makes me smile, he's the best thing ever. You know, I'm walking the halls and general populations of students see him. They kind of pat, and then the boys are like, hey, Champ. So everybody notices, everybody seems to smile and be very receptive to him. And it provides those connections where some people just aren't enough. the dog, as it was said by someone, is soft and feels good. So these were some of the quotes that the students have given me about why he's a good thing. The last thing I just want to reiterate to you is, like I said, you guys are famous for allowing him to come in because so many staff and teachers around the state are asking me for how did this happen? How did I go about getting him in the building? We really want a dog. So thank you for that, for allowing him to be in the high school.
Thank
Any
you.
questions?
He's amazing. Thank you for everything you do.
Anybody else?
Thanks,
All right.
Sue.
Thanks, Champ.
And we should thank, it's Stephanie, right?
Yeah,
Your
that's
daughter?
definitely
Yeah.
my daughter.
So Sue's daughter Stephanie, so not only is Champ our dog at school, but their dog at home too. So thank you for, thanks for training him so well.
She does some of the work. I guess wanted to I didn't say it in my presentation, some of the concerns people have are allergies, fear, and some of those things. I have had a student and a staff member address fear issues with me, and we address that by just saying our building is big. And I know it, and I know where those people are in the building, and so as long as I know, I steer very clear from those vicinities. And so far, nobody has brought forward any allergy issues. Most of the high school students know to steer clear, right? So the only thing I wish I had a little bit more time to do more outreach past my classroom. So hopefully someday that'll work itself in. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thank you.
again.
All right, our final presentation, small territory detachment proposal.
Sure. So with us tonight is Kathy Olson. Kathy is a resident of Eagle in the Palmyra Eagle Area School District side of the border. So she's with us tonight to explain her rationale for filing her petition to detach from that school district and attach to ours. Kathy, go ahead.
Ma'am, could you speak up just a little bit, please?
The mic's off.
Is the microphone working?
Is the mic on?
Here, I'll tell you what. Take mine here, okay?
We pay taxes, but our voice is gone. We would like to have our rights restored again, and the only way we see that happening is to ask to join a school district that allows our voice by way of vote. We know that for some reason you're not keen on the idea, and if you would grant it to us, that we would be able to go through with the appeal process by saying yes, that it would cause an island, but since we have no children, it wouldn't impact our school district or your school district at all. We hope that you see that the situation outweighs whatever concern you have for creating an island. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Did you guys have any questions? So this is an agenda item, an action item, excuse me, later in the agenda. So we'll be discussing it, but I didn't know if you had any questions for Kathy.
I don't, anybody else? Nope.
Okay.
All right, so then we will move on to Student Learning Committee update.
Bless you.
Class.
She is,
Stephanie's at the,
Stephanie's not here, okay.
Stephanie's at the table.
Stephanie's at the table.
She was just quick.
Where did you go? I'm like looking for her to come up, I'm like, okay.
She's here.
Just like that.
All right, it was so long ago, I can't remember what we talked about.
Okay, we reviewed the documents for the, English, and we looked at the policies. Our students are taking a tobacco survey, and the biggest item on our agenda was the weighted grades. We talked about it to great length, and Stephanie was going to do more research and come back to us, and then we will come back to you when we have more information. There also was we have the freshman-only day, and there was a request that that freshman-only day be changed to the week before school starts, and so that all the students would attend the first day of school for more contact time, and we were told it wasn't, no, I'm not welcome.
No, don't.
Okay, and I think that's it. Anything else that we didn't, that we discussed that we should bring to the full board?
No, any questions?
All right, then we will jump ahead to Personnel Committee update. Andy.
So we talked about the one policy in regards to vacancies in the school district in the event that a school board member were to move or leave the district. And the policy as we have it is very clear and is sufficient, we believe, for what we have for our policy. And we saw no changes to that point. The only changes that we saw were in the appointment or placing of a new representative in the event that there is a vacancy. And we decided that we would keep that basically the same as what we had as far as the process that we used previously. Is that fairly certain?
Yep, and that's an item on the agenda for action, and so we'll talk a little bit about that.
Sean, you got the next one.
So we talked about our staffing priorities. So as you know, because of revenue cap relief, we do have some revenue that we can spend, and we want to make sure that when we talk about adding staff or addressing facility needs, that we're following our strategic plan. And so I shared a presentation with the Personnel Committee and the Finance and Facilities Committee that talked about the needs of the district. And next month, we'll be talking more specifics about what we believe our needs are and how we should proceed, including what the cost of addressing those needs would be. So this was just an introductory conversation at the Personnel Committee about our needs, and then the same thing with the Finance and Facilities, what we think our needs are.
And the last one, Susan spent quite a bit of work working on, and Susan, it's yours.
So we've been continuing our work in revising the compensation plan. And one of the things that we have worked through is to link the compensation plan to the strategic plan. And one of the difficulties that we have most recently worked through is how to deal with those individuals who are at the top of the salary range, and then how to move them into what we call the master teacher range. And so we've come up with, I've drafted with the committee an application process that we would use to be able to have those teachers apply to move into that process. The next step in this process would be to meet with groups of teachers and to get their feedback on this process. So that's kind of where we are, and we'll update the Personnel Committee once we've done that. So we're still on track to complete this by the end of the year and to be able to implement at the beginning of the next year.
Erica, that's all the Personnel Committee.
All right, sounds good, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Finance and Facilities Committee update.
Few action items. Do we want to just go through those as we go through?
Sure.
Okay. Buildings and grounds project planning procedures and planned improvements we talked about. And we sent forth a motion to approve those to the full board. Do you want to go through more?
Sure. So, Andy here, chime in if there's anything, Andy. So, Andy discussed a way that we prioritize the projects, and as he meets with the principals annually to see what is needed in the elementary, middle school, high school, he takes all those requests, that feedback, and considers those, ranks those, and grades those with some criteria. So it provides a little bit more of a consistent application. And then from there, we insert those projects into last year's plan, into next year's plans, excuse me. But we do have some things that we would like to accomplish here during the 1920 school year before June 30, because we got to plan for these things on a fiscal year basis. So we do have, under action items, we are looking to redirect $136,132 in the buildings and grounds budget that was originally allocated for utilities. Utility costs have been favorable, so we're not looking to increase the budget, but we're going to take this opportunity to take those funds and apply those onto projects that we were hoping to get. After Andy went through those, he feels those are things that we can get done before June 30. So that's why he chose those, and we're looking for your permission to do that when we get to action items.
Do you just want to quickly hit on the highlights or
Yeah,
big ones?
Tom covered the process that I'm putting in place, and then as far as the items that we're looking at doing, it kind of comes down to what are the needs in the sense of improvements that are needed now, and if it's a safety concern. If it's just a need that is going to be something that makes the building nicer but doesn't really enhance it to the point that it needs to be done now, it's something that's being looked at and being put off for the future. Next month I will be coming with the budget for the next year, which will have a couple of capital items in there that are in the 10-year plan to cover. But otherwise, a lot of the items that are here now are just kind of for your information more than anything.
So this is on, and summarized on page 38, so you can see a list of what those projects are, what year they would be budgeted for, and the motion that we'll look to make there is captured in the column that's titled 1920 Fund 10 Utility Excess. So again, with favorable utility costs, we do anticipate having a surplus there. So this is to repurpose that, and you can see that there's a few projects at Big Bend Elementary, a couple at McGuanago High School, one at Section, one at Rolling Hills, and a couple here at the district office that are safety related.
And I'd like to make that motion to approve them.
Second.
Okay.
Who had that
Wait,
second?
we're
I'm
not-
sorry.
Are we in
Oh.
action items right
That's
now?
why I said, do you want us to do the action items along with?
Oh,
Because
all
they're
right.
part of it.
Yeah, that's fine.
So this would be action item 6.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other questions or discussion? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. Motion carries.
All right, DOJ safety grant updates.
So the DOJ safety grant, obviously that was put together over a year ago in 2018. And so we identified a array of projects that we needed to complete. Some of the ideas that we had at the time, the main one that we put a lot of money and effort towards was to put the actual push buttons in the hallways in the schools. I've done a lot of research with other school districts, and not too many people are going that route. And we feel with some of the incidentals that we've had here in the district, putting that type of actuation in the hallway could be a negative by kids just going and pushing it. And we've seen a great amount of panic put into the alarm going off compared to a fire alarm. Fire alarm going off, people disregard it half the time. When this goes off and with the message that comes with it, it puts people in panic. So we felt that we were better served in utilizing those funds in a different manner. So I've worked with the DOJ, and we've reallocated the funds to be able to go towards the items that I presented. And it really comes to cover radios. We will be adding repeaters to the schools so we can talk better amongst all the schools. We are going to be adding film at the high school where we don't have film now on some of our exterior entrances, which will put us in line with what the first part of the grant was at all the other schools. We will be doing more film on the side lights of classrooms, and then putting vision kits on the windows like you see on that door that's narrow, where we'll take the stops out and put a new metal stop in there with a safety glass to make the doors more less penetrable for an intruder. And then there's a couple other items in there as well. So again, this all falls within the means. There were dollars that went above and beyond the DOJ grant to complete these projects. We felt these projects needed to be completed, so Tom and I have worked together with what he has left over in his funds, that we should be able to cover this without asking for anything additional.
All right, and then we talked about the Parkview Middle School update.
That would be Sean.
You want to talk about it?
So I shared a PowerPoint with the Finance and Facilities Committee that I actually shared with those of you who were on the board at the time from 2017, December of 2017. At that time, if you recall, we were taking a look at what the needs were at Parkview Middle School. And we put those potential solutions for Parkview on the back burner because we had a number of other issues to work on, including finishing up the high school project and creating our strategic plan. Now we're at the point where we want to bring that back to the attention of the board and talk about some long-range plans for Parkview. We do have some more short-term needs at Parkview that we're not quite sure how to proceed because we don't know what we're going to do long-term. So there is no action needed. It's just we want to start having this discussion again. And I'll be back with the Finance and Facilities Committee meeting in March to talk about how we proceed forward with plans for Parkview.
All right.
I don't know if anybody had a question, but the PowerPoint that I shared this month and also in December 2017 is in your packet.
All right, then we talked about the MASD budget priorities.
And that's what I talked about with the, or no, wait, was that you, Tom?
No, that was you.
Yeah, that was me.
Okay, and the 2021 budget development for the school budgets.
Yeah, I'd share with the committee how we develop our site-based budgets for our elementary, middle, and high schools. We use a 3-year rolling average, which is the same mathematics that's used to define our whole school district's budget. So I walked them through how we allocate those dollars, and those are the dollars that are then given to our principals, and they can make decisions at their local level. Did we lose that? Sorry about that. All right, sorry about that. So I just shared to provide some transparency. And as we go through this some more, I will also talk about how we have our department level budgets. The school board has a budget. Sean has a budget. I have a budget, technology, food service, etc. And as we move forward, I'll be sharing with how we develop those budgets so you can see how we do those things, just to provide that transparency. But we started with the schools there.
All right, and then we went over some policies to review, so. We didn't change anything.
No, we didn't make any changes. We just took a focus on the policies that pertain to fundraising with our staff. And I briefed the committee on how we communicated with our staff members and their expectations going forward regarding fundraisers, best practices for cash handling, counting the money, depositing the money timely, do's and don'ts.
Okay, and that was finance and facilities.
All right, so we will move right along to action items, appointments, resignations, retirements.
So Susan's here. She's going to talk about appointments, resignations, and retirements.
So we have 6 retirements for you. 4 of them require action, and those are teaching staff. So Deanna Fowler, she has 23 years with the district as a MHS library technology specialist. Wendy Sondrell, 22 years as a special education teacher at the high school. Sherry Locano, she's been with the district for 14 years and is currently as a SOAR teacher. And Pat Grady, who has 16 years in technology education at the high school. And then there are 2 support staff retirements. Cheryl Richardson, attendance clerk at the high school with 20 years of service, and Karen Lenzer, an instructional assistant at the high school with 29 years of service. So.
Do you have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? No? Okay, motion carries.
And if I may, I just want to say those are some really good people that are leaving us. And every year at this time, we have some retirements that We want to make sure that we recognize and thank these guys for their many years of service. And some of them are really going to be difficult to replace. I'll just use Pat Grady as an example. Really going out on a high note. As you know, our tech ed department was named Tech Ed Department of the Year by the state, so that's fantastic. Pat has been our auto teacher for 16 years, like it says here. But the words on the paper don't do justice for all the good work with all the kids he did with that program. Fantastic. And the rest of the people, support staff and teaching staff on this list, really some strong employees who have been with us for a long time, have done a fantastic job in various different departments, so very difficult to replace. They will be missed, but we wish them the best.
We have one appointment for you to approve in addition. Kristen Roberts is being hired as a limited-term social worker for the remainder of the school year. If you remember, this was an addition to help at SOAR. So she's being hired at 50% for the remainder of the school year. So Kristen comes to us with experience in a couple of different school districts, including Darien, Delavan, and Watertown, and then is currently working as a therapist in Williams Bay, providing therapeutic interventions for children, adolescents, and adults. So she interviewed, and in part of that interview process was also meeting with the SOAR students, and they took to her right away. So that was an important factor in her recommendation for hire.
I'll make a motion to approve that.
Second.
I have a motion and second. Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion
Thank you.
carries. Thank you. All right, resolution authorizing the redemption of certain of the taxable general obligation refunding bonds.
All
That
right.
sounds like a fun one.
That again.
Yeah, legally speaking, that's the way we gotta type that one up. So on page 48, I have a memo here, and we're talking about our Fund 38 debt. We have $1,095,000 of callable debt that we can pay now. And so the question is, do we pay that debt or not to? So in a short-term lens, this will add to our shared costs, and we've been talking about this issue quite a bit. I feel like you guys are grasping that concept. I'm happy to hear, happy to see you guys nodding your heads about that tertiary stuff. So good job, guys.
Just say yes.
Or I'll keep
Could you
talking.
review again?
All right. So do you guys have any questions about this? I'll just back up and we'll go from there.
Sorry?
Any questions?
No.
Good job.
All right, I did want to just point out, though, on page 51, I gave a snapshot from something that's posted on the DPI website. And this is a snapshot of our last 10 or so years. And I've highlighted in yellow those all the years where we are spending into the negative tertiary level. Now, if you recall, that means we're spending past the 90% mark of the statewide average. It's fairly easy to do that. Okay, it's even on a modest budget as ours with our low revenue limits. You can see historically speaking, only 2 years of the last 10 did we avoid spending into that level. So I think one of the questions that we had at the finance committee level the last couple months was how far or how often do we spend into the tertiary level? And the answer is quite often. So just with the exception of 16-17 and 17-18. So I think this is just the right time to do it because our negative tertiary aid will be at a low level, and it's time to capitalize on that.
All right,
I would like to make a motion, we approve this.
you're not going to read the whole thing?
No.
Okay, so we have a motion. I will second. Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, motion carries. Neola policy updates and 142.5 vacancies.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so I think if we could do 142.5 vacancies first and then go through the Neola policies, those legal changes, and we're gonna keep an eye on the time because as you know, we need to be done. So as Andy said, we're really not recommending any changes to the policy on vacancies. So I just want to make sure we're all on the same page there. Now, I have a memo in the packet, and I just wanted to make sure everybody understands that if a school board member moves out of the district, that does create a vacancy. However, if a school board member moves from one region within the school district to another region, if you move from the east to the west or from the west to the central, that does not create a vacancy. So we checked with legal counsel, and they said that board member would be allowed to finish out his or her term, even though they moved from one region to another. There's only a vacancy if the board member moves out of the district. So no change needed there. And then we talked about how the selection, if there is a vacancy, how would we proceed with the selection process? And I outlined a new selection process there. The vote still has to take place in open session, but I did put a process in the memo that would narrow the candidates. And we would, each of you would get a piece of paper. If there were 4 people, you would rank them 1 through 4, and then whoever had the most points would be able to, that we'd have a motion for them first. And I don't think we need to put that wording in the policy. That's a procedure. That's not a policy. That's an administrative guideline, a procedure. So there's really no changes, but I think that's a practice that I think the Personnel Committee felt comfortable with, and so we're asking the rest of the board if you're good with that process too. But no changes to the policy.
But that update will be made in administrative guidelines.
Exactly. We would create an administrative guideline for that we would attach to the policy.
Any discussion or questions on that? Okay, so then let's go ahead and vote on that one in particular. Do I have a motion?
I move. Second.
I have a motion and a second for the vacancy policy 142.5. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right.
And then we come to the legal updates that we get from Neola a couple times a year. And there are a lot this time, and we approved several last month in January. I just want to remind you again, these are mainly wording changes. If you need more time on any of these policies, just say so. It's not bad for us to bring back more information if you have questions or concerns. We have no problem with that. Starting on page 53 in your packet, we can take a look at these policies and Neola's explanation on why the change needs to be made. And we would start with number 2270, religion in the curriculum. So the explanation, as I said, is on page 53, but the actual policy with the wording change starts on page 57. So you sort of have to go back and forth. But to summarize, as our Neola rep said, this change basically is to keep districts from getting sued. So the explanation is outside parties have appeared to increase their scrutiny of references to religion in the curriculum. The terminology in this policy has been clarified to better conform to legal standards. And like he said, this will prevent us from getting sued.
Are we doing one at a time, or?
It's up to you. If you want me to go through them all, or you tell me how you want to proceed.
I read through them, Sean, completely. I think we should just make a motion.
Yeah, I scanned
Yeah,
it as well.
let's just approve them all.
Legal.
Does everyone agree and everyone is surprised that Craig read them all?
Nobody believes him.
I'll make a motion, we approve them.
You
So
are
you gotta
making a
make-
motion to approve them all.
I read them as well.
You have
Do
to
we need to waive a
waive
first
the
reading?
So we would waive the second reading, actually.
second reading.
Okay, so let's start with that. You're going to make a motion to waive the second
Make a
reading?
motion to waive the second reading.
I'll second.
We have a motion and second to waive the second reading. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So now, if someone would like to make a motion to approve them all.
I'll make a motion that we approve all of the recommended changes to the policies that Neola has suggested.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and second. Any other discussion? Questions? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No? All right. policies carry. Next, we have small territory detachment request. Requests.
Okay, so we have a couple tonight. On page 99, we have the Koth family who resides along our border. They're in the Norris School District, and they're looking to detach from the Norris School District and attach to ours. The Norris School District will take action on that tomorrow. They have an 8:30 a.m. board meeting and, tomorrow morning, so we'll be the first board to make a decision on that. On page 101, I prepared two resolutions for you to consider. Page 101 and 102 are those two. So on page 101, this would be the, resolution 2020-02, and that's to deny their petition to attach. And then on page 102 then is resolution 2020-03, and that's a resolution authorizing or granting this. So again, I think their school board intends to approve this, so I don't think there's really much any issue in doing so. So I'll leave it to you guys to take action here.
I would like to make a motion to approve resolution 2020-03 and granting the Koth family.
I will second. We have a motion and a second. Any other questions or discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? No? All right, motion carries.
Okay. All right, then. On pages 106 and 107, we have the same two resolutions, one denying and one granting for the Olson family, who Kathy is here with us right now. The considerations that you have to make or should make are on page 100. So these are defined by state statutes 117.15, and those are the criteria. School district reorganizations. As it walks through there, and it looks at those 7 criteria, you know, the one I want to point out then is number 5, and that's whether the proposed reorganization will make any part of the school district's territory non-contiguous. The state law allows to have like an island that isn't, you know, adjacent or touching, you know, or in the body of your normal school district boundaries, and this would be a situation like that. I'm going to walk to the map here and just point out where this is. So it's on our west side here. It's Prairie Farms Court, which I'm pointing at right here. So it would be just that property then that would detach from Palmyra and come into ours. I assume there's probably some other examples of that around the state, but I would assume that's probably a very small number of situations like that. As you can see, everything else in our district, the property that we just had that came onto us is just in this area right here. So it basically doesn't change the boundaries too much. It just moves it ever so slightly, and this is a different situation. So with that being said, are there any questions that you guys had or comments you want to make before taking action here?
Jeff?
The concern that I have when I was looking at that was, if we were to do this, what would that open the door for
That's my question.
others to do? In that, that for some reason feel the same way.
Sure.
And then we end up in a situation where we have individual properties in the, that area that are a lot of islands. And I'm not sure I'm comfortable going in that direction.
Anyone else?
And maybe I don't know what I'm supposed to know more, but I'm trying to figure out why we would want to do this. Anybody would want to be in the middle of something, and it's the purpose of it. The other one, I understood what the purpose was, the one that was on the edge, but I don't understand the purpose of this one.
sounded like Mrs. Olson was saying that she was more frustrated out of their vote not being heard and their voice not being heard and respected. I think that sounded to me, that was
The
the
reason
gist
why?
that I got, the reason why, if that's fair to say.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well.
I would agree that the vote that was not listened to was the biggest part.
The fact that, you know, the state of Wisconsin ignored the voting citizens of that district, so, you know, in regards to that, I'd make a motion that we approve it.
I guess I'd say I understand the frustration. But if this was part of a larger territory detachment where it was an entire subdivision or a piece of property that was attached to our school district as it is, I mean, right now they don't have kids, doesn't mean they're gonna sell. And kids are gonna move in, and then we have to take a school bus over territory we're not supposed to be in to get to our territory. I just think it causes a lot of conflict, and I'm voting no.
We do cross the other territories going down the other side of the road or whatever right now, so that does happen. And I think I mean, again, I agree with you guys. I mean, it was the fact that some people are disenchanted with the fact that they took a number of votes and they're not being listened to. Unfortunately, that's like supposed to be the democratic process, and just on that alone I would support it.
I would say I completely understand the frustration and where it's coming from. I don't feel comfortable necessarily voting yes on this because it's not exactly our responsibility. Like, it's not our fault that this didn't go through. I don't feel like this is something that we step in and rectify when we weren't really part of how this all worked out. I echo what Mary said, that if this were something where it were a bit more of a larger small territory where it attached to our boundaries, I would be far more likely to consider it rather than one single home outside of our lines.
And again, I could just see a situation where if this were approved, then it's kind of giving a green light to other people within that area to do something similar, and I don't know if that's
Well, in the past,
what
that
we
did
want
happen.
to do.
As a community, a small territory detachment did make the effort.
No, but I mean in a one piecemeal kind of
Right.
fashion.
Andy?
But I also think that residents such as those here tonight do have a right to, if they want to make a choice, to come to a better district and remove themselves. And what she said echoed, and I agree with her, the residents of that community that voted no, you know, their vote was silenced by the state of Wisconsin and Tony Evers and the DPI resolution board. And that's unfair because to Art's point, you know, it's supposed to be a democracy and our vote is supposed to matter, and yours was taken away. So I vote, you know, when it goes to that point, in favor of it.
And I can't speak for everyone, but I would assume that we all agree with that statement. I mean, they were simply not heard, but it's not that that was a decision put on our plate that we had the power to make.
But they are coming to us and asking us to take them in, and that is their right.
Correct, and to remind you of the policy, like, we will take a vote on this today, and if it were to pass, it still goes back to their school
Right.
board.
Yeah.
I'm not going to pretend to know how they would vote necessarily.
Just to give you
We
guys
need-
an update on that, the
Oh,
Palmyra Eagles School District did take action on this last Tuesday, I believe, and they did vote no. So if you were to vote yes, this would land on the desk of the Boundary Appeal Board. And I think the appeal then basically rests with them to figure out where that's at. And I think at that point, we had 6 members. I know there are 7 people on the committee, but 6 members, 6 of those 7 were Boundary Appeal Board members. 3 of those would ultimately make final decisions here.
Okay, just so you can understand, I thought you all got one of these, but this just came to the clerk. It is a copy of the certificate of true copy of the resolution to deny the petition to alter the school district boundaries received in the Palmyra Eagle School District office prior to February 1st. This is in regards to the Olson petition to alter school board boundaries. Action was taken to deny the petition at a regularly scheduled meeting of the PEASD School Board held February 18th. Petitioners were afforded an opportunity to speak before the school board to present reasons for the proposed reorganization before the school board adopted the resolution. Please be advised that all future correspondence regarding this matter may be addressed to me, and it is signed by the district administrator, Myra Eagle School District. So I didn't realize it just came to me, but now you all have heard it.
Did we have a motion?
I did.
We have a motion, we do not have a second, I think.
I would like to second it.
So that's to grant the.
To grant that.
Okay, got it.
So, Tom, to clarify, if this board chooses to grant, to pass this motion, it really just sends this resolution to School District Boundary Appeals Board for them to kind of reopen a case for one property.
So just one clarification, it doesn't automatically go.
Okay.
That's only if the family chooses to appeal the decision. So they would have to decide to take it to the Department of Public Instruction. Department of Public Instruction would assign it to the Boundary Appeals Board. Not all 7 like we saw for the dissolution process, but 3 of those members.
And are you able to guess, or do you know the process, if they were to appeal it, what that means for MASD and being part of that process? What does that bring us into?
We wouldn't be part of that process. I'm sure we'd be invited to a meeting, but
Sean likes meetings.
I do.
Any other discussion on this?
So by voting yes, we may, as a board then, as with some of the members on this board, be asking the state to think about what they did. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, and welcoming families into our district.
Would it, I'm curious on your opinions because I don't know how I feel, would it be goodwill as a neighbor to a bordering school district to go ahead and move forward with this? Would it complicate things in the future? Would it?
We have a history as a board.
But is it
I think-
premature, I think is what Erica is saying, is it premature?
I think this would be happening once, every meeting, twice a meeting, if we do grant this. I think that's a problem. I think this could happen 3 times a meeting. This could take up a lot of Tom's, I'm just thinking out loud how much work this would take. Tom?
Part of me thinks too, in all this, that I think that school district's gotta cooperate in certain areas. Because it could be people in our district who are looking to leave and get out. And then we'll have islands in our district and islands outside of our district. I mean, potentially, it's real, it could happen. So I think that there should be some kind of mutual understanding where it does make sense going back if there's a larger piece of land that's going to make it contiguous. That makes sense.
Tom, would a whole subdivision make a difference? Would a big subdivision versus one?
What's the definition of small territory?
Right, yeah, that's.
7% of the equalized value or less of the whole school district. So the school district, I think, is $880 million. It'd have to be 7% or less. Sean, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So if you recall, well, I know some of you were on the board, others were not. The last time we went through this process with Palmyra Eagle in the small territory detachments, there were 5 small territory detachments. Each one of those detachments had to be less than 7% of the equalized value of the Palmyra Eagle Area School District. And that's why they broke it up. They had a large area that wanted to detach, but because they wanted to go through the small territory detachment, a process that's only approved by the school boards and doesn't have to go to the referendum, doesn't have to go to a referendum in both districts. They went the small territory detachment route, and we had 5 of those. If you recall, Palmyra Eagle at that time voted no. We voted yes. The residents who initiated those detachments wanted to appeal to the DPI, but they missed the deadline. on what some would say is a technicality.
Okay, so we do have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any other discussion? So the motion that was made was to approve this small territory detachment. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no.
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 Can we
Do we need to
get a show of hands, please,
Okay,
here? How
so
many
yeses,
ayes?
Ayes.
2
Or
ayes.
Andy, Jeff, did you say yes?
No.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Okay, and the noes, please.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Okay, motion does not carry.
Does that automatically make it a deny, or do we need a motion to?
I'd take action on that, and
Okay.
I think we have to make a motion on resolution number 2020-04, which is the resolution to deny the petition.
Is that
And
your
I'll make the
motion?
motion.
Okay, we have a motion
I'll second.
and a second. Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
No,
No.
I don't feel either way, I'm sorry.
No.
That's your choice.
Why are you apologizing for your vote? Tom, do you have that? or do you need-
yep, 6-3, yep,
Yep.
got it.
Okay, so motion carries. Next, we have St. Joe's attendance boundaries.
All right, I got a memo on page 109. The public schools have a responsibility to provide transportation to the private schools that are within their district boundaries or within 5 miles of those district boundaries. St. Paul's and Genesee is closing at the end of the school year, so the parishes, St. Joe's is looking to advance their boundaries and expand those boundaries. I had those outlined on pages 112 and 113. With that being said, there's really no reason or ability to deny this change. These students can ultimately, are going to be assigned to a parish somewhere if they choose to go to a private school, that is. So we've had this request from St. Joe's. They submitted it last year, but they submitted it in May, which was after the deadline. So they got it in much earlier this time here. So I recommend that we accept these new boundaries as proposed.
I have a question.
Yep.
What is there a transportation cost impact on us for, we're moving
Yep.
bodies from further away to Big Bend then, if that's the case? How does that affect us?
So currently, St. Joe's boundaries is really the purple area and the pink area, Clarendon and Big Bend. So if you live in those areas there, you're provided transportation. Now, how you provide transportation is up to us. The administration of that is up to us. So yellow school bus, shuttle service, parent contracts, etc. So in the expansion of this, we have established routes. We have 4 routes that pick up Christ Lutheran and St. Joe's together. We also scoop up some other kids along our public school routes as well. When we go past our current boundaries and into the new proposed areas, we would take a look at the additional costs. My guess is they're going to want yellow school bus service, so that only makes sense, and I get why they'd ask for that. But if expanding yellow school bus service to those new students exceeds 150, on average per student, the 100% of those costs for our average student transportation costs, then we don't have to provide yellow school bus transportation. We can offer a parent contract. So by May 15th, they have to give us a list of students who they know are registered for next year, and then we take that information, we work with Dousman to figure out what should we do. So I can't really answer what the transportation impact would be until we know what their roster of students who are eligible for transportation next year looks like. I can't see it being very substantial. Now, if we're adding a full route, that's substantial. If there's 10 students and we have to create a bus that costs $38,000, that's that's $3,800 per kid in transportation, which is well past our 150% average. So if that's the case, not knowing how many additional students we're talking about here, my guess is that it's going to mean we're going to extend parent contracts to the students in these areas, but I won't know this. We won't know this until May or so.
Any other questions? Okay, do I have a motion to approve St. Joe's attendance boundaries?
I would make that motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, motion carries. Unfinished business, superintendent's report.
So actually, I'll be pretty brief tonight, but I did want to say thanks to those of you who were able to attend the musical. And I know a couple of you were at the musical a lot because your children were participating.
Yep.
But congrats to Jacob and Brooke for doing such a great job in the musical. Hello, Dolly. Great work. And I do have the program. Is that the technical
Yep.
term? And so we can pass that down, and you can see their pictures in there. But yeah, I know lots of you were there.
Towards the end, the advertisement is there.
Oh, yes. Oh, and I do want to point out
Yeah. we saw Arts Fair.
that if you look in the thank yous, the school board is listed.
Yeah, I
It's,
saw that.
I didn't even look.
Yeah, great.
Page, main place.
Yes, the school board is listed, so please note that, Mr. Schneider. Tomorrow night, we do have Your Choice coming to Brook Life Church to do a presentation on vaping. So that starts at 7 o'clock, if interested. This weekend, the weather didn't look so great, but that storm has been downgraded quite a bit to 1 to 4 inches now, so 1 to 3
Now
now.
they're saying
So
a dusty.
we should be
Yeah.
That's what it's.
quite a dramatic change, but so we should be able to have that presentation, and hopefully we'll get a good turnout because vaping is certainly a concern. And then,
Kids were talking snow day. and now they're all-
yeah, not my fault. Should
believe
talk
it.
to Mark McGinnis and Tim Holbeck when they're here.
The sky-
Tomorrow through Wednesday.
And then in your folder, there's a picture, a photo from the Freeman. The Education Foundation donated $12,000 to the Mugwanago Area School District for Project Lead the Way activities at the elementary level. So we greatly appreciate that, and they made that presentation at a Rotary Club meeting a couple weeks ago. And then in your packet, I'll go, if that's okay with you, Eric, I'll jump down to the correspondence. A couple of letters that I want to bring to your attention. One letter is from the Wisconsin Technology Educators Association, and recognizes our Tech Ed program as the Tech Ed Program of the Year, which is a great honor for us and our staff and our students, and also an invite for Andy Northard and Kelly Ahrens, 2 of our Parkview Middle School teachers who teach STEM classes, engineering classes, robotics. They and their students have been invited, one of 12 schools in the state, to present Project Lead the Way activities at the state capitol on April 14. So that's a great honor, and really a couple of special teachers and great programs at Parkview. And then also a thank you to Jerry Gendusa, one of our parents, who was instrumental in our basketball program, and others throughout the community, raising $40,000 for the Make-A-Wish Foundation. And that was not this past Friday, but the previous Friday, a great night at Mugwanago High School.
Twice what they had
Caden.
Right.
planned to raise.
So really a special night, and it was good. So I think that's all I have.
All right, great. We have no board president report. I would like, or we need a motion to go into executive session.
Can I just make one comment?
Oh, you may.
FOMA had their FOMA Heart Fest 2 weeks ago, and I'd like to thank the board members that were there, and Tom. We had a really great event. We raised almost $20,000 that night, and we also did a check presentation last Friday to Children's Hospital in the amount of $5,000. So to date, over the last 6 years, FOMA has given back $36,868 to Children's Hospital. So just another great event, and I wanted to thank everybody.
Right.
Were there any other board member questions?
How about a comment? I'd like to thank Art Schneider for being in the, hello, Dolly, nice job, Art. Thank you very much. That's why you're the guy.
What
Thank
can
you.
I say?
Okay.
All right, one more, quick, Jeff.
Real quick on Friday, the girls' basketball team will be hosting a regional basketball game. They're number 1 seed in their region, or their sectional, I should say. So there's a likelihood they'll be playing Saturday night too, against either Muskego or Franklin.
Fridays will be a hard-fought game.
Yeah, it should be good. And the wrestlers, eight wrestlers qualified for individual state, and the team is also in team state. That's a big deal.
Yeah, a lot going on, a lot of good things going on.
I think wrestling team has won conference 10 years in a row, and the girls are on 7. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah, something like that.
Yeah,
It's
awesome.
quite a run.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay. Anything else? Vice, do we have a motion to move?
Motion.
I just have a question. So the next play that's coming up is the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory?
Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, so that will be the drama production in the spring, yes. And I can't remember the dates, I can get those to you though.
It's March.
Oh, I thought it was April. Audition started today, I believe.
Whoa, that's why I thought.
Is it tomorrow? Shannon.
She's
Are you?
auditioning.
All right.
Oh, Shannon, good
okay.
luck.
Break a
All
leg.
right, awesome.
Okay.
And hear which one she's trying out for.
Hopefully Violet.
That would be cool.
Well, good luck.
Good luck.
Yeah, good luck.
The musical was amazing.
Yeah, it was.
Did a great job.
I don't know how they did that scene, that set. I would
Oh,
love
that
to know.
looked good. Everything was great.
That's it. Okay, so,
There was a
we have a motion to go in, there is a motion?
There
Andy,
was a
do you have a
motion.
second?
Second.
Second, all right, and
Discussion.
then can we roll call into executive session?
Erica,
Yes.